I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins. Welcome to Financial Lovemaking. This is where we talk about love, life, money, and everything in between. I'm here with my buddy, partner, and co-host, entertainment and lifestyle expert, Miss Estia Brown. Did I say it right?
You did say it right.
Okay.
How are you? Good morning.
I'm doing well. I'm glad that we got a chance to record again because, I've been out of town, so we haven't been able to work together because of the janky hotel internet.
I know you've been busy traveling,
Yep.
talking, getting those ducks in a row. It's
Duck,
all
duck,
good.
duck,
It's all
duck,
good.
duck,
But the
goose.
good thing is when we come back together after a little bit of a break, we always have a juicier topic. And
Oh, yeah.
today's topic is one that people have been talking about a lot. Tina Campbell. She's one half of Mary Marriage. She has a hit television show, a reality show on WeTV. And this season, she's really been talking a lot about how she's repaired her marriage with her formerly estranged husband, Teddy Campbell, after finding out that he'd been unfaithful to her, not once or twice, but multiple times over the course of their 14-year relationship. So Tina has really gone from, and she's been very frank about this, from being angry, hurt, and violent in some ways to forgiving her husband through counseling, through prayer, through, actively doing some, introspective work, and then ultimately having a stronger marriage and working together collaboratively in music. So financially, they're now a duo as well. So a lot of people have been talking because Tina, again, has been very outspoken about the hard truths about dealing with her anger. And one of those things that she did that's been pretty controversial is messing up her husband Teddy's car. She apparently, took a hammer and some other things to one of his favorite vehicles and really jacked it up during a fit of rage. Some people think that this is par for the course. When you've betrayed someone, people retaliate, and some people think this is absolutely unacceptable, especially given the fact that Tina is a gospel singer. And she's held to a higher standard of behavior. And she's just saying, hey, I was hurt. I acted improperly. We've moved on, and it made our marriage stronger. But I think particularly a lot of men that I've spoken with have had issues with women being given kind of a pass, they've said, after damaging their property because the man has done something emotionally that was wrong. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, boys.
Wait, I just got a text message. The text message is from Ray Rice, and he says,
Oh, no.
Look, I know it's inappropriate for me to punch my wife in the face, but I was hurt, I acted inappropriately, and we've moved on in our marriage. So, now my question is this text I got from Ray, which I'm not going to lie, I really didn't get the text. I
Right.
want to ask you if Ray Rice made that same statement after punching his wife in the face and said he was hurt, how would we respond to that? Now,
But essentially, that's what he did. He apologized. He said his behavior was inappropriate, and Janae forgave him. The difference in this situation is that Teddy Campbell, again, they've now moved past it, but we can speak frankly, was unfaithful, lying, and deceptive for almost 2 decades of their marriage. And his
okay.
wife says that she lost it. She lost it. She didn't hurt him, even though she wanted to. She didn't hurt herself and she didn't hurt the kids, but she did hurt an object. Now, do I think this behavior is appropriate or no? Absolutely not. However, I do understand her candor about where she was, and I accept the fact that he's forgiven her and she's vowed to do better and be better. I don't think
Yeah.
that she should be punished in the court of public opinion for having a meltdown, given the whole scenario.
Well, I think that you and I both agree that a marriage is between those two people. And, the reason I wrote an open letter to Janae Rice in support of her decision to forgive Ray is because I said that's your marriage. You have a right as a woman to make, or as a human being, to make that decision that's best for you and your family. But I think, in this case, in both cases, you certainly see a difference in the reaction of the public. It's just kind
But
of
okay, this is interesting. You're comparing someone being hit physically to someone
okay,
damaging
okay,
someone's
right. Well,
item.
well,
And
you
I
know
don't
what?
think this is
Well,
that
I'll
arrogant.
tell you what. I'll tell you what. If I got upset with the woman that I love, and I went out and I took a hammer to her car and busted up her car, I would probably get arrested. I would be defined to be an abuser. There would probably be restraining orders filed against me because I've clearly shown that I'm not mentally stable. It doesn't matter how much I was hurt. It doesn't matter what she did. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. All that matters is my reaction to it. Now, where we're together though is I want people to just keep this in mind when they talk about people being hurt and people acting out. Men and women both get hurt. I mean, the biggest myth in the world is that men somehow don't feel hurt when a woman betrays them, but women can feel the hurt and they can act any way they want. Or that men don't get betrayed by women, but yet women always get betrayed by men. No, I know a lot of men who have been really hurt. One of the biggest ways I've seen men hurt is having their children taken away from them in a divorce or custody battle or child support situation. And you see those guys,
Absolutely.
and you'll see those men act out because they've lost the most important thing in their lives. So again, I'm not condoning any kind of violence, any kind of crazy reaction, but remember that I think in our society, our reaction to somebody busting up somebody's car, it differs from male to female, and
And
I
I
think
definitely
that I think that's wrong.
think I don't think that things are always fair, but I will say this. I think that Tina did three key things that were very important. First, she accepted and acknowledged her accountability for her behavior. She did not try to make it seem like it was inappropriate. Second, she apologized and she didn't repeat the behavior. Third, she took action. She went to therapy. She worked on herself. When I've interviewed Tina about this issue, and one of the things that she says in terms of like her marriage in general, even though her husband's behavior was despicable, she took accountability for her fault in contributing to the dysfunction in their marriage. And I'm not talking about this physical action. I'm talking about the way that she interacted with her husband in terms of being supportive, in terms of she described herself as being overbearing at times, being inconsiderate and selfish. She took action and she went to therapy to improve herself, to work on her natural coping skills, and to improve her marriage. So given those three things, I can't vilify her
Right,
at all. I think that
and
she serves as a great example for how something so hurtful and despicable can turn into a teachable moment.
right, and well, first of all, I think neither one of us are condemning Tina Campbell. Just for the record, I love Tina Campbell.
Okay.
I love what she's trying to do. I love Mary.
Never.
Right, right. Mary. I mean, one of the greatest groups of all time. And God bless them. I really, this is not me picking a bone with Tina Campbell and saying, "Oh, you're a bad person." It's not me doing that. But what it is, me doing is saying that we really have to look at the gender bias in terms of how we evaluate domestic violence. And I only say this because I know men who've been victims of domestic violence. I've been threatened by a woman before to the point where I feared for my life and had to run away, get away from her. And the thing is, as a man, you don't feel like you can go tell anybody because people will laugh and say, "Oh, you got punked," and blah. It's very difficult for men when they go through that. And so, what I would say too is that accepting accountability is one thing, but accepting accountability with a caveat then creates a little bit of how shall we say complexity or confusion about who the true victim really is, right? Because if you were to look at this
What do you feel
situation,
the caveat
the
was? Or
caveat
is?
the caveat is this: I take full responsibility for my behavior. Even though I only did it because my husband cheated on me, what you're saying is,
But
right?
notice I didn't say that. I didn't say that, and
You,
she didn't relay it in that way at all. She was very accountable and I think very upfront in saying that her behavior was unacceptable. She was having a meltdown and she needed to get better coping skills. I do agree with you in terms of there being gender bias, and one of the things that I encourage all men to do is to not be ashamed when something like this happens to you, when you're in an uncomfortable situation and a female is being an aggressor. And the biggest thing you have to do is actually be proactive by getting the law involved so that way you have a record of the behavior.
hmm Well, it's funny because even Marissa Alexander's ex-husband gave a really, really interesting interview with evidence, supported evidence. He didn't just give his opinion. He said, "Look, the way the media is portraying this, they're portraying me as the aggressor, her as the victim." He said, "No, there's a trail of evidence where I've called the police on her because she shot at me while I was holding the kids." But no one really even wanted to hear his story. Everyone sort of just took this position that, oh, Marissa was innocent and she just, did this thing to protect herself because that narrative is so easy to believe. Almost like because the thing is, everybody believes the black man is a monster. Everyone, it's easy to believe that for a lot of people.
I totally agree with that. And I'm not familiar with the intricacies of the case, so I don't want to say yay or nay, but I do know that he was also accused of domestic violence. And I think that you often have situations where both parties are acting in an unhealthy manner. However, we know that men are physically stronger than women. So in some cases, women do need to use more force or more objects to defend themselves. So I think we can't compare apples and oranges here. That's
Well,
a very
yeah,
different
yeah,
issue.
but yeah, I'd say the person that's physically stronger is the one who's got the gun or the hammer or whatever, right? So I would say
That's
that.
not
Well, yeah,
no, that's passing a weapon.
what I'm going is this. Even if you look at the way Tina's allowed to tell the story, which gives sort of a female privilege, if you will, if you want to call it that, because the black man is at such a huge disadvantage when it comes to these situations. That's why we're the ones who are the most likely to be locked up for this kind of thing. Even the way she tells the story is kind of like, yes, I did this unacceptable thing because I had a meltdown. And then the natural question at that point is, well, why did you have a meltdown, girl? Oh, because he cheated on me. Oh, well, that explains it. I would have done the same thing too. And the thing is that when you compare that to say, the apology expected to be delivered by, say, a Ray Rice or let's say some guy who just hammers away at his girlfriend's car, he's not able to say, I did this because I had a meltdown because she did this to me. He has to just give an unconditional apology and not focus on at all on what she did and only focus on what he did. And I think and really at the end of the day, I think that's what we all have to do. Look, if you behave in a violent way toward your partner, you need to suck it up. You're in the wrong. Period. If you Unless your partner has physically assaulted you, he's hammered your car, or he's punched you in the face, or whatever, you have no right to express your frustration in a physically aggressive way. You have no right whatsoever. Because guess what? You're hurting your relationship. We've all been hurt. I've been hurt so bad I wanted to go and and kick somebody's butt. I remember a long time ago I had a girlfriend stolen from me by some guy who was sleeping with her and I didn't even know what was going on. Do you think I didn't want to go to his house and literally like remove body parts on this dude? Absolutely. I was furious. I was mad as hell. I fantasized about things I would do to him if I had him in my possession. But you know what I did? I didn't do it because I knew, one, if I did it, I'd go to jail. Number two, I knew that physical violence in a relationship was wrong, and that's the bottom line. I couldn't say, well, the only reason I went to their house and killed them both was because I was just so hurt, and I'll say this and then I'm done. But it reminds me of this story I read about a guy like 30, not 30, maybe 80 years ago, who was a high-ranking politician who eventually became a bootlegger during Prohibition. Well, anyway, while he was in jail, the woman that he loved, that he trusted with his money and his heart and everything, she started sleeping with the prohibition agent who was investigating his case. And it's almost comical. It's not funny, but it's interesting. This prohibition agent worked with his wife and took all his stuff. So when he got home, he had no woman, he had no possessions, he had no money, and so he saw her one day. He found her on the road and chased her down and shot her down. And he went to court, and this is how crazy it was. He was his own attorney. He acted in his own defense, and he basically pleaded his case to the jury. And you know what happened? The jury let him go, and one of the jurors said, "I'm so sorry you went through this. I'm just happy that you'll be home in time for Christmas. This is my Christmas gift to you, the acquittal, because what she did was unacceptable." Now, was that right for her to do that? Absolutely not.
Right. Look at the happiness in your voice when you're
It's not.
relaying.
It's not happy. I'm not happy. I'm not. No. No. No.
I,
No. 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 I'm not happy about it. T. I'm not happy about it at all. What I'm saying is that that's the kind of ridiculous world that we've lived in the past, and I'm not a fan of that. I think domestic violence is wrong, and I think this guy should have gone to prison. No matter how hurt you are, you cannot act out physically against your partner,
okay.
whether it's
I'm
on
happy
their
that
person or their property.
story
It's
positive.
unacceptable. Period.
Okay, okay. I'm happy that the moral of the story is something positive. I will say this. I disagree with you in terms of Tina coming across as she's trying to justify her behavior. I think that she's talking about how she felt. And I also think it's an important part of the story because people often assume that if you are a celebrity, specifically in the gospel circles, that you are perfect and you are not subjected to the emotional, irrational, behaviors that other people sometimes are. And so I think that it's a lesson there. Again, I think that the other thing that she models is that you have to work actively to improve yourself and to be better, right? So this is not just, oh, my husband cheated, so he has to become a better man. I didn't respond to it well. And also, I was not a good wife to him during the time of our marriage. So I think that's something that people have to take away. And the
Yes.
other thing, the original topic that we brought up around is that now they're working together on many different levels. So they've worked out, they've become a stronger couple because they're better friends. And financially, they are now more open and working collaboratively. So I think that it ended up being a win-win. Was it ugly before it got to this point? Absolutely. And do I think that there's some bias against men in general, Black men? Absolutely. But I think that we have to be so careful when we're talking about domestic violence because each situation is very unique. So we can't kind of take this, blanket and apply it to all cases of domestic violence because we know that they're different individuals. And I'm definitely an advocate for not just Black women, but also Black men. I have tons of uncles, I have brothers, I love them all. I date Black men, and we want to protect everyone. Everyone is important. And so I think it's important for people to be mindful of all of these variables when they're interacting with somebody else. What do you want to say, boy?
No, well, I was going to say, and I agree with you. I support Tina on this. I love the way Tina's handling this. I really do. And what I took issue with was not with Tina. It was the people. It was the people around her, the public's reaction to this, the way they sort of inferred the information they were hearing. I have no issue with Tina at all. I think Tina is amazing. I'm thinking about all the people who got mad at Tina when Tina accepted responsibility for her broken marriage. When she said,
Right.
"Well, when she, mentioned an obvious truth that if you're not meeting your partner's needs, they may decide to step out on you." I've always known
Absolutely.
that. I've always known that. I
And I
mean,
did an
people
article
people
on
didn't
that.
understand that.
Uh, I did an article on that, and I interviewed Tina, and the title was "When His Cheating Is Our Fault." And the bottom line is, you do have people who are going to be unfaithful and who won't honor their vows. But then you also have situations where partners aren't paying attention to the other person's needs, and it's very important to make sure that you're showing up 100% and being mindful, especially as more things are laid on your plate. And one of the things Tina talked about is, I became a mom. I had a business, and from the beginning she said that her and her husband were not friends. She said that they were passionate lovers, they had great chemistry, but they didn't talk to each other. They didn't open up about vulnerable things, and they argued a lot, so they didn't have a strong enough foundation to handle the storms of temptation and frustration. So I absolutely agree with you there. So we get along with something, right?
Yes, yes, we do, and we both love Tina Campbell. That's I just want to make sure I laid it out there in case because I don't want her I don't want her to think or any of her people to think that we are
Right,
dogging her
right.
out. I'm not dogging her
Well,
out.
Lord.
Yeah, I know,
So
right? Lordy B.
love to hear what you guys think about this topic. Did Tina and Teddy do the right thing by sticking it out, working together, and building a business after all of the infidelity and the drama in their marriage? We'd love to hear your thoughts.